Hey, Salina.
Hey, Nikki.
And hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's Extra Sugar. The term extra sugar is extra important today because, Salina, friends, the tea is hot. We need sugar to cool it down. I don't know. There was some sort of play on something there, and I just couldn't quite get to it.
Should it be that, like, it's so hot that the sugar will melt fast?
Yes, that's it.
I mean, maybe that's not
it.
really good either.
We'll
but
workshop
maybe
it.
someone yeah, let's do it live, though.
We'll workshop it. But for real, this extra sugar is all about the behind this.
But for real, shut up.
For real. We're
trying to get to dinner. Shut up.
This extra sugar is all about the behind the scenes drama of Sex and the City. Salina, for you to level set from the top, you and I are nothing if not girls.
Yes.
We're here for the womanhood. So what I'm not going to be doing is like fueling the flames of gossipy sort of stuff. I don't want to do like TMZ Perez Hilton energy. I am focusing strictly on things that I could get from the voices of the people who were actually part of the program.
I love this.
Or like those directly involved in one way or another. I'm not really trying to pick words that are put into their mouths. So this isn't going to be necessarily gossipy, even though I set it up that way.
Okay.
Just trying to lure people in
to
my web of rumors.
Well, keep luring, will you?
I'm trying. So the fact of the matter is that things clearly happened between the cast of Sex and the City. We know that because Kim Cattrall didn't return in a meaningful way to And Just Like That. We also know that because the people intimately involved in the show have talked openly about some of the stuff that went on behind the scenes. We know more recently that Chris, is it Noth? That's how it's pronounced. Chris Noth, a.k.a. Mr. Big, has shaded Sarah Jessica Parker in surprising ways. We've seen things come out between Sarah Jessica Parker and Kim Cattrall. Those are real things. So we're going to focus on those substantive things. The other thing that I thought was maybe worth doing is macroing the conversation out a bit and seeing whether there are common themes when it comes to the behind the scenes drama of other TV shows.
I love a theme.
Thank you. I do too. So there were a couple themes that felt really familiar, so I thought we could talk about those. Just for you to know, when I started conceptualizing this segment, I was kind of thinking of it as like, is this the perfect example of how behind the scenes stuff gets blown out of proportion because these are women involved and it becomes like a catfight situation? But I think we've talked about stuff like that a lot between Designing Women, a little bit with Golden Girls. So I didn't want to rehash things we've already talked about before, but I do think there's something in the sauce with that. I think there's some rumors of quote unquote, even just the terminology of catfighting, like Kim and SJP are catfighting. Right. I don't think it's that, but clearly something went on.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think about like all men shows. And like, I don't think I've ever seen like all the hot tea on the league.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
It's just not a thing.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to stop every 2 minutes, Salina, and ask if you have something useful to contribute, because that would be mean. And any good co-host wouldn't put their co-host on the spot like that. But I want you to feel free to jump in if something jogs a memory, if you have something to add. Does that sound good?
That does sound really nice and not aggressive at all.
Good. All right. So we got to rip the Band-Aid off, though, to get started. We have to talk about what happened between the ladies on Sex and the City, because that's important, I think. If you get into it, I think you have to rewind all the way back to the early 2000s, more specifically to some comments that Kim Cattrall made on Friday Night with Jonathan Ross. Are you familiar with this program?
Yes.
Okay. So it's 2004 when she said this. She was talking about the end of the Sex and the City series, and she said, quote, "I felt after 6 years, it was time for all of us to participate in the financial windfall of Sex and the City. When they didn't seem keen on that, I thought it was time to move on." So that's a pretty abrupt reference to a significant salary gap discussion that seems to have been occurring almost since the beginning of the show, offset. So I found a recent Cosmo article that dug into the salaries of the ladies on And Just Like That, and it reported also their salaries during the Sex and the City days. So according to that article, Sarah Jessica Parker made about $50 million from the first 3 seasons. Roughly, that comes out to about $1.04 million an episode. If all things are equal, worth saying, I don't think all things were equal. I think she made progressively more as time went on. I think she was making about $300,000 an episode in the early seasons.
Which could have also been because she wound up being a producer on the show.
So that's definitely part of it.
Okay.
But she was either way, like how much she was making then or then is like irrelevant because it was a lot more than Kim was making at the height of Sex and the City. Kim was making about $350,000 an episode.
Oh.
And like you said, by the time Sarah Jessica Parker became a producer in season 4, she was making $3.24 million an episode.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. So I found several articles that reference some of the things around that time potentially showing a fracture in the cast. So there were reports from crew members who said that Kim would eat lunch separately from the other women. I found reporting of the 2004 Emmys where Kim sat separately for the ceremony. And so I think all of these things are things that individually you could write off as gossip, but they do seem to form a theme. And in those early days, Kim's comment was, "Are we the best of friends? No, we're professional actresses. We have our own separate lives." However, more recent reports seem to put on full blast how aggressive the business side of things got. So of those salary discussions, producer and writer Michael Patrick King told The Hollywood Reporter in 2018, "The show doesn't exist if Sarah Jessica wasn't the blonde star of the show. That's number one. Kim was not at the height of her career. Kristen was under her in terms of notability, and Cynthia was a theater actress. As the show progressed, the characters, everybody grew. It became a family. Kristen, Cynthia, and Sarah Jessica became one group, and Kim never joined mentally. Kim fought and said, quote, 'I'm everyone's favorite.' Parker's name was contractually, legally, righteously the only name on the poster due to the fact that she was a movie star in 1998 when the series started, and she did a leap to do a show about sex on HBO, the channel that did the fights. And it doesn't matter how popular you are. I guess for Kim, it didn't matter how much the raise became if there was never parody, but there was never going to be parody because Sarah Jessica was the star." I was shocked at how blunt and honest those remarks were.
Yeah, that's maybe the most blunt straight shooting I've ever heard in these kind of conversations.
So it didn't end with the show. Obviously, the next chapter in the Sex and the Series saga was the movies, of which there were intended to be at least 3. Kim did sign on for the first movie at a cool $7 million, and then the second for $10 million. However, I feel like that was kind of like the pot just continuing to simmer because the lid didn't finally blow off until about 2017 after news circulated that the third movie had been canned. Public perception at that time was that it was because of Kim's ridiculous salary demands, and I'm putting ridiculous in quotes. Then her brother passed away, and almost inexplicably, she posted on Instagram tagging Sarah Jessica Parker, "Your continuous reaching out is a painful reminder of how cruel you were then and now. Let me make this very clear, if I haven't already. You are not my family. You are not my friend. So I'm writing to tell you one last time to stop exploiting our tragedy in order to restore your nice girl persona."
I remember that.
Oh, it's still up. It's still on her handle, which shocked me. So at some point, Sarah Jessica said, oh, and I'm sorry, I should contextualize that was apparently in response to Sarah Jessica reaching out about her brother passing away and sharing her condolences on social media. And that was Kim's reaction to that. At some point, Sarah Jessica did say that she had done what she could to appeal to Cattrall to appear in the third film. Ultimately, she said it was the studio that said, quote, "We can't meet those asks of hers. We're not able to do it. The economics don't make sense." So then it's over. But that's not a character assassination. That's just the way business works.
I will say, I don't know, was Sarah Jessica Parker's condolence on like open public social media? Do you know?
I thought it was, as I just said that a minute ago, I thought it was, but now I'm not sure.
Okay.
I thought it was, and I thought that's why Kim responded so publicly.
Yeah.
But there were other things I found that were a little harder to source, so I was nervous to bring them up. But I do think she had another post or comment she made later at some point about how Kim Cattrall said her mom made a comment about Sarah Jessica Parker and was like, basically, is that fake phony done messing with our family and done being mean? It's just so odd.
Yeah.
It's odd because of things like this. So Sarah Jessica Parker never claimed to have this relationship with Kim Cattrall that Kim claimed they had, where they just didn't get along and they weren't friends. Sarah Jessica Parker said, I'm not in a cat fight with anybody. I've never publicly ever said anything unfriendly, unappreciative about Kim because that's not how I feel about her. She also said it wasn't possible that she and Kim could have spent years on the show fighting like behind the scenes because, as she put it, I would have had stomach aches every day. Sensitive tummy crew understands. Yeah. Like that would mess with your tummy. That would stress you out so much. She was like, it's just not possible.
It doesn't match up with anything I've ever read about her, heard from other people in Hollywood about her, like, and obviously like in articles and stuff. On any kind of interview or appearance that she's made anywhere, she seems very grounded and down to earth. It feels like a misread of who she is or her intentions, but that's just one gal's opinion.
So I think you and Amy Harris, who was a writer and producer on the show, are kind of on similar pages, which is, I think, where I fall in some of this too. So Amy said that social media post I read you a minute ago was, quote, incredibly unfair. She also said it didn't mesh with what she'd seen on set through the years. While she expressed empathy for Kim through the loss of her brother, she bluntly said, quote, what she did was wrong. I don't understand why she did that because whatever the past was, those were 4 women who did care about each other. And I did understand where her rage and anger were coming from in terms of what she was going through. But I don't know why she chose to take it out on Sarah Jessica. She also said personally she thought Kim was tired of playing Samantha, which valid. It had been almost 30 years at that point. Yeah. However, she said it wasn't right of her to claim that her choice had been taken away from her because everyone else involved was a monster. Like, she's reframing her desire to not play this character anymore as, it's not, I don't want to play the character anymore. It's, oh, everybody involved is so horrible. I just can't play this character anymore. And Amy's saying that's not fair. She went on to say, quote, I think it seemed like things were really moving forward, and then suddenly the rug was sort of pulled out, and the reasons for it didn't seem to match what actually happened in my mind. Mm-hmm. Michael Patrick King, again, was more pointed. He flat out called it revisionist history. He said, quote, people do things. They make stuff up based on what they want to tell themselves. All I know is that show was spectacular for everyone involved. It was a spectacular success, and you have to work very hard to make that Sex and the City story be something that was not good for you. And for some reason, Kim thinks something happened to her on that show that was not good for her. Obviously, Kim didn't originally return for And Just Like That. She did a Variety interview in 2022 when she was asked about not being part of it. She said, it's odd, isn't it? I don't know how to feel about it. It's so finite for me, so it doesn't continue. I think I would ponder it more if I didn't have something like Queer as Folk or How I Met Your Father. That's kind of where I'm centered around. This feels like an echo of the past. I loved Samantha. I loved her so, so, so much. It's tough competition. The original show is in all of our imaginations, but for me, it feels clean. In follow-up, she was asked whether she was ever friends with her Sex and the City co-stars, and she said, I guess it's how you define friends. I think we were colleagues. My colleagues aren't my friends. It was professional. She did finally return to Samantha Jones in 2023. She had a phone call with Carrie, which I imagine you watched in real time as you were watching it just like that.
It felt like a nothing burger. Okay. I forgot. Like until I was like, oh yeah. And like, I don't even hardly remember the call.
Okay.
You know, and I think it was pretty short. Like, and maybe they were like teasing it or something at the time. And maybe that's why I was annoyed. Like, man, we don't tease this as a return.
Yes.
It's a phone call.
Yes. And apparently she filmed it in a garage and never had contact with any of the rest of the cast or characters.
Yeah, that sounds right. It felt like that.
Okay, good. So over the years, I found a lot of comments from Sarah Jessica Parker noting that she didn't not like Kim. She said a lot of times she respected her. She knew the concept of Sex and the City did not work without Kim, and that she had always tried to behave respectfully in public view about the whole thing. At one point, I found a quote that said, like, I've never said anything bad about her in public. And then she even went on to clarify, like, even in private, I've always said she's a fantastic actor. She's like, she is part of the show and we need her.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see, Salina, I will pause here and see, like, is this kind of matching with, as you watched this drama unfold in real time, is it kind of matching with what you remember? Does it feel right to say that there's definitely this sort of rift happening here and no one can seem to explain the other one's side?
I think, yeah, like it's always felt like something is missing. But like, as I hear you talk about it right now, and in my practice now to like really attempt to not make things right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It does feel like Kim Cattrall was really going through something.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that is awful. And I hate it when people are hurting. And it also feels like sometimes, like, yeah, you just need a reason. And it does feel like a grasping for a reason. Mm. And I just don't like, again, like none of us will ever really know. It's the exact same thing we said about, especially about the Designing Women stuff. Mm-hmm. I actually thought the Golden Girl stuff was a little clearer. Mm-hmm. We're not there. Like, it's almost like a relationship, right? Mm-hmm. You never really know what's happening, like when two people live together, unless you're in that space. And sometimes I am not convinced that the two people living in that space know what's going on.
1,000%.
Right? And so for that reason, like, we can't really know, but my read on Sarah Jessica Parker is that she is not mean girl energy.
Yeah.
And listening to her talk to Kristen Davis on her podcast, they seem to have a real love for each other.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So something didn't add up here. And maybe Kim Cattrall just never felt a part of that. And like, almost like in our main episode when we were talking about where like Samantha's like trying so hard to not be mad at Carrie and it's only making her angrier.
Yeah.
What if that was like playing out in real life? Mm-hmm. And it does suck to not be in the fold. Mm-hmm. You know?
It does.
That's a really hard thing to have happen. So I don't know. It's just, I just want people to get along.
Yeah.
You know?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like the business piece of it was a big piece of it. And I think you mentioned this in our main episode this week, where Samantha was almost, like you said, I think you said a C plot at times. She was like down here in terms of the plot. But the character is something that so many people identify with and remember because her performance was so over the top.
I think Friends had it right.
Yes.
And Big Bang Theory also did. Go to bat for each other, have the same salary.
I've been thinking about this a lot.
Or at least closer.
So I almost included Friends, and I think I am going to mention Big Bang Theory at one point in time. I almost included those, but the difference in those things is what Michael Patrick King said. Yeah. Those were truly ensemble shows.
That's true.
This one doesn't feel like that. It has become that over time.
Right.
It has become the show about four women, but the way it started and the way it was conceptualized, they talked about we were building Candace Bushnell's universe.
Right.
Because this was Candace Bushnell's story.
That's right. They really had to find those other characters because they were, I'm actually reading the book right now and like, it's not what we see.
Yes.
I'll say that because you and I are going to talk about it, but.
Yes. So you have she is the central character. These people are in her orbit. Then you layer on, which you mentioned, which was the producer credit that she got, which there is another level of drama to that doesn't really feel worth digging into because ultimately it boils down to the salaries. Sarah Jessica Parker got another line added behind her name. Now she's actor and producer. So her salary went up. She was contributing more to the show.
And I think it was almost immediately.
I feel like it was somewhere around like somewhere between the second and third season. Okay. I think.
Yeah.
But she and Kristen Davis, I listened to that episode you sent me, and they spent she made it sound early, and I think that framing is very intentional in building the narrative around this piece of the drama behind Sex and the City. Mm. They pegged her very early on as someone who was going to contribute a ton to the show. Mm-hmm. So all this other crap you're hearing from this other person, it just doesn't add up. And they want you to know it doesn't add up. And I think that's why those friends were having that conversation on the podcast.
Oh, that's very interesting.
I don't think it's Mean Girl. Mm-mm. I think it's preserving her career and preserving her reputation.
Built. Yeah.
Yeah. She's being unfairly torn down for something that truly is business.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. And it would be great if everybody could get along and everybody could make the same amount of money. But then everybody's going to have to show up, put in the same hours, run the exact same number of lines, do all the same amount of work. And it just sounds like that wasn't happening here.
And it sounds like these shoots were brutal.
Awful. It really, they were like working, I think she said 80-hour weeks, 100-hour weeks sometimes.
Yeah, these are like, think about how little some of those segments are.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. But yeah, I wonder a lot about this because on the one hand, if you're the person everybody keeps having a problem with, eventually you have to kind of wonder, are you part of the problem?
The problem is, in my experience, some of those people don't ever realize it.
Correct.
That
is
hence
exactly
the trouble, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But also there is something to be said, where there's smoke, there is often fire. So
It's
it
the
is
name of a Sex and the City
entirely
episode.
Oh, there you go. It's entirely possible in my mind that Kim Cattrall is trying to bring to light something that was happening behind the scenes and something nefarious that was happening.
Yeah.
We'll never know.
Yeah.
All I can say is based on what I have read that was written down attributed to these people and what seems valid and not gossipy, she seems like the problem here. It seems like there's something not adding up. So the other Sex and the City drama that I wanted to flag was the Chris Noth, Sarah Jessica Parker kerfuffle as of late.
Yeah.
Yes. So again, social media is involved. Yes. Yeah. And so again, this is where I say,
Sarah Jessica, we need to talk about some shielding exercises for you. You can't leave yourself open to attack. Call me. We could be friends. One curly-headed girl to another.
This is where two things. One, I wonder, is social media maybe part of the problem? Because his is very social media based.
And why are people, it's just so random?
It's so random.
Why?
But I also come back to where there's smoke, there's fire. So maybe something's happening here. I don't know. This one dates back to only 2021, which was right around the premiere of And Just Like That. Chris Noth had revived the role of Mr. Big. There was an explosive Hollywood Reporter article containing rape allegations against him. One from a woman who was 22 in 2004. He would have been around 50. And one from another woman in 2015 when she was 25. He would have been around 61. A third woman would later tell the Daily Beast that he sexually assaulted her in 2010 when she was 18. In between those two allegations, and I had forgotten this part, actor and screenwriter Zoe Lister-Jones of Life in Pieces. Did you watch that show? Fantastic show.
It was a really good show.
So good.
Yes.
She claimed, well, I say she's of Life in Pieces fame. That's my frame for her. She was also in Law and Order Criminal Intent because she came out and said that when she worked with him on a 2005 episode, he was, quote, a sexual predator and was drunk filming his scenes.
Which character was she on Life in Pieces?
She was married to Colin Hanks.
Okay. Yes.
She...
It's the Swoopy Bangs.
Yes.
Yeah.
You saw it happening?
Uh-huh.
So I think, unsurprisingly, he denied all of this, all the charges, everything. But not long afterwards, the ladies of And Just Like That released a statement which said, "We are deeply saddened to hear the allegations against Chris Noth. We support the women who have come forward and shared their painful experiences. We know it must be a very difficult thing to do, and we commend them for that." So he had filmed a cameo for And Just Like That for the season 1 finale, and it was ultimately cut. Yeah. It seems like his character, maybe you know this, his character was, spoilsies, killed off in that first episode, not related to this.
I was having some trouble remembering that.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe he had already agreed that he wasn't going to be a part of the show or whatever.
I think that was it.
They wanted Carrie to have this journey on her own, and then it was happening almost right at the same time. Yes. So I guess they'd already filmed, made those decisions. Yeah, yes. That sounds right.
Okay.
I'm putting on my 2021 brain in.
Yeah, well, I just researched all this, and it's just kind of hard to put the pieces together, but I think that was kind of how it all played out. It looked like he had been cut from the show, but I think the decision had already been made.
And I think the reason it gets a little twisty in my brain, because I think we were all very shocked when he dies at the beginning of the first episode, yes. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's all very, whatever. There's also some Peloton.
I was going to say, so speaking of product placement, the Krispy Kreme of it all, Peloton, I remember thinking, why would you want to be tied as a fitness product to a guy having a heart attack?
Exactly.
What terrible PR.
Right. Which is, they were using their 2021 brains.
I know. So he did an interview earlier this year, and he recalled the lady's statement as hurtful to him. He said the statement they put out, which was nothing more than brand management, really. I don't know. It was sad. It was disappointing. It was surprising because you need to call me and hear my side of this. You've known me for many years, and we've worked together for many years. He claimed none of the women called him to get his side of the story, which he said hurt and helped him see they weren't really his friends.
This is tough.
It's tough. So their statement never said what he did was wrong. What their statement did not do, which I appreciate, is it did not victim blame, and it didn't defend him lacking any information based on, I've never seen him act like that, so how could you claim he did that? What it did was say, like, we're sad about this, and we admire the women for coming forward with their truth.
These feel like lose-lose situations.
Yes.
And as our resident PR expert in this room, because there's only one of us who went to school for it.
Well, who went to school for it, but I think there are two of us.
So my question is, I understand why you have to make a statement. And I'm also going to say, sometimes are we overstatementing? Mm-hmm. It feels like that,
it's
right?
performative.
And I feel like, exactly. And so like, you're just damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Because honestly, I think the best thing to do if you were actually also his friend and trying to contend with that, like on a human level versus like we have to be seen saying all the right things because we have a show coming out, which I'm not saying that was everything. And I do believe, like, based on everything that I've heard from these women, I believe that they would be girls. Okay. All that said, like, wouldn't it be nice if people could just be quiet and contemplate things instead of feel like they have to immediately take a side or make a stance or make a political statement or like whatever. And I'm not like, and again, like I understand why the decision was made, but just at this larger level, are we just all doing too much?
Yes. And not to always bring it back to Taylor Swift, but she is notorious for not putting out statements on major issues. The few times she has come out on things, she's also been heavily criticized one way or the other. Yep. So she chooses her moments super carefully and tries to choose the things that she thinks her voice will truly impact.
Right.
So like she came out ahead of the Tennessee elections a couple years ago and single-handedly drove voter registration among a young population to an extreme amount. That's an impressive thing to be able to say. This sort of situation kind of sucks. And what I read in their statement is a true commitment to feminism and not wanting to be one. I think that their show was so intertwined with all of this at this point. There's not a world in which they get away with saying nothing.
It's such a rock and a hard place.
Because then people would be like, see, these women are on a show about women and they don't even care about women. All they're doing is protecting Chris Noth by not saying anything, by not criticizing him. So what they did was they didn't criticize him. They did not criticize him, but they didn't victim blame. So that statement's probably the best that they could do. What I will say is I think you're onto something in terms of the broader culture and where I admire the Taylor Swift of it all. Yeah. Once you build a persona as a person that doesn't make a lot of statements, it's almost more pressure then, because then you have to decide, what is that litmus test for when I'm going to say something? Is this the moment or not? But it also means then that you're not just adding to the noise and you're not contributing to the drama of it all. So what annoys me is that he said that statement hurt his feelings. No, what hurt your feelings is they didn't call you. And that sucks.
And I think the other thing is like all of this just like playing out in articles.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
As like you said, on a personal level, yeah, it makes me kind of sad none of the women called him.
Well, I was even thinking earlier, but we also don't know that didn't happen. That's where it gets complicated, but I doubt they did because they probably don't want to involve themselves at this point. You just kind of get cut. Yeah. And I, was thinking about like going back to the condolence thing. It's very unusual for me to send a condolence over social media.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like I see something happen, I stay quiet. If that person is in my life or was in my life at some point, I go to them separately, either at least on direct message if we're not like linked up through like a actual phone number now, or I go to them through like text or I call them. But like, I can't stand any of that. And also I'm thinking about these women or whoever has been through any of these situations. I feel like I would be very frustrated, even if like woman number 5, and I knew I was woman number 5, and I was getting dragged through media articles. It's really not anybody's business like that, until you choose for it to be.
Right.
And maybe they have, but I'm just not always sure that's true.
Yeah. Like you can theoretically go through a court case and never have a news article written about you. That happens all the time. In this particular situation, it's the person who's involved. And it sucks for those women because they want accountability, but accountability comes with notoriety.
Right. And it is like a different calculation, right? Because if you are someone who is even like whatever level famous and you have a touch of power, like I think that is what, if you truly are, and I don't know anything about Chris Noth. I'm not talking about him, just like a famous person, someone with power, then you can use that power over people. And I understand why you would want to cut at that, snip that away. Suddenly they're able to hurt less people. And so that is something that's also important. So it is really quite a tangled web.
It's almost as if we just shouldn't sexually assault people.
If everybody would, which sort of falls under the frame of just don't be an asshole. Because nothing is peak asshole like sexual assault.
It's true. You know? Truer words had never been spoken. Yeah, this one's a tough one. So weirdly, he said those things I just mentioned about the statement this year, and he said them after the most bizarre social media interaction that he had right around New Year's. Do you remember this?
He was like working out or something.
Yes. So just after New Year's this year, I think it was like January 7th or something, Sarah Jessica Parker received the Carol Burnett Award. The next day, he posted a photo of him, like you said, working out, and captioned it, F New Year's, let's go. Okay, that's like harmless, right?
It's fine.
Just like,
yeah.
Sure. A dude of a certain age feeling himself, wanting to whatever, embracing his New Year's resolution. Well, the weird part came when someone in the comments, it's always someone in the comments, said, you mean FSJP, right? And he commented back, right. What? It's completely irrelevant to the picture. Nothing was said about Sarah Jessica Parker in his caption, but he commented that back. So he later walked that back, writing in yet another social media caption, quote, my off-the-cuff, slightly sarcastic response to a comment on the internet seems to have caused a tempest in a teapot. It's not news. So there's that. Maybe it's fake news or whatever. But to me, that doesn't explain why in February this year, when asked how he felt about being cut from the series, he said, very good. I was very lucky.
Yeah.
What does that mean? So I think
we know what it means.
I'm thinking this boils down to ego. So I found a 2023 Vanity Fair article that reported on some remarks he made in response to a New York Post /Radar Online. It got dicey who reported it first, but he said he felt iced out by the women of the show in the wake of the rape allegations. So his response on social media was, I usually don't respond to this kind of thing. And I do know that people like drama and gossip, but this article by Sarah Ibrahim is absolute nonsense. Just thought you'd like to know. But he basically got called out for whiny behavior. He was whining about being left out of the group text, basically. So he said, that's a crazy article. It's totally made up, whatever. But now that the dust has settled, it feels to me like he's reclaiming the narrative saying the women didn't support him. Do you see what I'm saying? So like that article from 2023 said he felt iced out. He's so embarrassed because like, how dare they say I feel iced out by women? Now in 2026, he's saying those women made me feel bad about myself. So I think those were the main storylines from Sex and the City that seeped out into headlines as the show ran on. But did I miss anything that you just thought I was going to bring up today?
No, I no. And I think actually like in retrospect for something that's been in the culture for almost 30 years, that's pretty good. Minus the sexual assault.
That's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough. Yeah, it wasn't a lot of drama. I really tried to, it also helps that I wasn't trying to like fuel flames or whatever. Cause like that stuff doesn't always feel valid to me. And I think maybe, Kristen and Sarah Jessica Parker talked about this on the podcast, or maybe I read it in an article or something, but they were basically like, when you work for 80 hours, 90 hours a week, like tempers are going to run, you're going to get snippy sometimes. To me, that's not drama. That's just life. That's just part of like you and I have had snippy moments with one another doing the podcast. Like that just happens. It's not dramatic. It's not anything more than two friends who are under a lot of pressure. So I didn't want to focus too much on that stuff. But I did want to share. So obviously Sex and the City dealt with power. They dealt with pay. They dealt with public perception. It got complicated. But if you zoom out a little bit, these same dynamics have played out throughout TV history. Sometimes it's about pay. Sometimes it's about personality. Sometimes it's about public controversy. And sometimes it's that thing I just said. It's way less interesting than all of that. Sometimes it truly is, like Kim Cattrall said, TV sets are workplaces. These are my coworkers. We're not friends. It's not that serious. I don't think she really meant that, but she said it. So we talked about pay disparity on Sex and the City. That's come up a lot on TV shows over the years. You mentioned the Friends drama, like if people, not drama, but situation. If people don't know that, that's a really beautiful situation of showing up for your coworkers and making sure that everybody gets a fair shake. Big Bang Theory is the same thing. But the X-Files, do you know about this one, Salina, as it relates to pay?
I don't know. Share with me. Maybe it'll spark something.
Okay, so X-Files, for anybody who like has lived under a rock for decades, is a 1990s, early 2000s, then again mid 2000s science fiction drama.
I forgot about that.
When it came back,
Yeah,
I tried watching it. I didn't get into it. They had a few behind the scenes drama things that have come up over time. But the one I really wanted to talk about was pay parity, because this was a really big deal with Sex and the City. And similarly, it was a really big deal here, but the circumstances were different. And I feel like this is just really going to bring something up in you if you have not heard this or if I'm reminding you of it. So Gillian Anderson played Dana Scully and David Duchovny played Fox Mulder. If you watch the show, you know basically the whole premise was built around these two characters together. Mm-hmm. There is no like Sarah Jessica Parker leading it situation. It is Scully and Mulder. Mm-hmm. It's their thing. But during the early seasons of the show, Anderson was reportedly earning significantly less than Duchovny. She's spoken in interviews over the years about having to push pretty hard to negotiate for equal pay once it became clear that it was a two-person job. Like this wasn't a one-person show. It's two people. We're both pulling our weight here. I'll be honest, the early 90s context of it feels fair to me. Like she was a woman. She was, I think, younger than him. The industry was structured differently. Like didn't surprise me. Really glad to hear that she came out getting more equal pay toward the later part of the run. Right. What shocked me, and I feel like I knew this at some point, but when the show came back for that 2016 revival, she was initially offered half of Duchovny's salary. Half.
Yeah, that's wild.
For Scully. Like,
right. And she's like done a lot.
She's done
like a
lots.
ton of other things.
It's not like this is the only thing she's known for.
Exactly.
And even if it was, she was doing half the work.
Right.
Fortunately, they eventually reached a deal that was much closer to parity, but it's a pretty striking reminder that these pay conversations don't happen just one time. And even when you think a decision's been made, it certainly has not. And that male-female thing has not gone away. So that's one kind of behind the scenes tension, money. But money isn't always the issue. Sometimes the conversation that fans or just like armchair experts latch onto is whether the cast actually liked each other. So this is a theme that came up with Designing Women, came up a lot with Golden Girls. And then I just mentioned some of it with Sex and the City, this concept of kind of quote unquote just being coworkers. That in and of itself is not necessarily drama, but it is fascinating. It makes it interesting. You know, you think they should be best friends. I think it happens a lot more that people are just coworkers on these shows than at least I would think. I presume they like are besties because they're spending so much time with each other. Not true. Lesser known example that came up for me was Mythbusters. Do you remember this show? So this is a science-based entertainment show where the co-hosts do all kinds of experiments to prove or disprove various myths and rumors. So Adam Savage and Jamie Hyneman hosted the show together for more than a decade. They did a lot of really wild and sometimes occasionally dangerous experience. Watching the show, you would think they were good friends. Both of them have been very honest and open that they were not. Savage once said they'd known each other for more than 25 years and had never even gone out to dinner alone together. They simply weren't personal friends. But the show worked really well for a lot of years. Savage explained that part of the reason was that they constantly challenged each other's ideas and they pushed each other to improve their experiments. So sometimes the dynamic that works best on screen isn't friendship. It might be that professional respect and that tension of pushing one another to be better.
Right. Or kind of like love interests.
Yes.
Like how they say, like, if they actually wind up together,
yes,
like that good tension goes away.
Yes, absolutely. And then I wanted to address the theme of like when what happens off screen becomes impossible for a show to ignore. This one I wanted to bring up was the Roseanne Barr situation. So in 2018, ABC revived the original show Roseanne, and it was an enormous hit right out of the gate. It premiered to huge ratings, and it had already been renewed for another season. But shortly after the premiere, Roseanne posted a tweet about former presidential advisor Valerie Jarrett that was widely condemned as racist. So within hours, there was a ton of backlash, and ABC made the very unusual decision to cancel the show outright, despite the ratings. A few weeks later, they would bring the show back just without Roseanne. The rest of the cast agreed to continue the story under a new title, The Connors. And that version of the show would run for several more seasons. So it's kind of that rare example of a series essentially restructuring itself around the absence of its original star. I will say John Goodman, who plays Dan in that show, was married to Roseanne for many years in the show. He has continued to say that does not track with the version of Roseanne that he knows. So like where we had Chris Noth saying no one took up for him, while the cast carried on with the show, and I think they all mutually agreed what she tweeted was very unfortunate, they've all said they don't believe she's racist, which I find interesting.
It is interesting.
And then the last thing I wanted to mention is it's not really controversy at all, but it's about like one character becoming so popular, the whole show pivots around them. So we didn't actually see this with Sex and the City because it continued to be focused on Sarah Jessica Parker's character, Carrie. Right. But I do wonder sometimes if they amped up Kim Cattrall's character a little bit more because everybody loved Samantha so much. A classic example of this happening was on Happy Days, super throwback, but essentially the show originally centered on Richie Cunningham and his family, but people quickly fell in love with the side character of Fonzie, who Henry Winkler played.
Oh, yep.
So as the character exploded in popularity, the show gradually shifted its focus toward him, and Winkler became one of the central stars of the series. So a shift like that can be really great for a show creatively, but it can also kind of change the balance within a cast when one person suddenly becomes the breakout phenomenon. So for instance, you could think about like the Urkel effect on Family Matters. Steve Urkel was meant to be a one-time guest on the show. Obviously, that's not how it went down. And the cast have talked often about how the show quietly and not so quietly reorganized itself around him. It also happened with Jesse Pinkman on Breaking Bad, who was supposed to die in season 1. I never knew that. But the show creator was so impressed with Aaron Paul's performance, he kept him around. Eleven in Stranger Things was originally intended to just be one piece of the ensemble cast, but obviously she ultimately would become the clear centerpiece. She raised Millie Bobby Brown's star power, and she ended up getting top billing and executive producer credits on related projects. And then Big Bang Theory, Sheldon. It was originally equally focused on Leonard and Sheldon, but Sheldon really became the breakout, and the show actually ended when Jim Parsons decided he wanted to leave, and it spawned young Sheldon because he was such a popular character. So sometimes audience reaction reshapes the hierarchy of a cast. And it's things like that where popularity, contracts, creative control, when those things start shifting, that's sometimes when the behind the scenes stuff, the drama, the interesting stories really start to happen. So when we hear about tension on a show like Sex and the City, it's really easy to treat it as uniquely dramatic or uniquely messy, especially because it's women. That's what we like to do. We like to say they're so dramatic. But really, it's television sets, they're workplaces, and very high pressure workplaces. There's money involved, creative control involved, and sometimes like really massive fame involved. And when all of those things come together, the relationships get really complicated. So that's what I got. Anything you want to add?
Just that I'm like fascinated to go back, and there's some, it might be Claire Foy from when she did The Crown and being paid less than Matt Smith.
Yep.
Okay. That was like
Accurate.
a really big one in recent years, but I feel like that is 2018. I feel like there may have been, I mean, they're happening all the time, but the pay disparity is like for real, especially
it's a
between
mind-numbing conversation.
Yeah.
It is really like, we're not done with this yet.
Right.
Like, why aren't you coming to the table offering women the same amount of money?
It's really something. And I was like quickly looking up a little article where they were talking about different times, and it could be somewhere where like, I think they said like Natalie Portman, it was like the year she won for like Black Swan. And that same year, she was in, I think she won an Oscar, and she was in that No Strings Attached movie with Ashton Kutcher.
Oh.
And Ashton Kutcher still made, like, she only made a third of what he made. What are we doing?
It doesn't make any sense.
What are we doing?
It don't make sense. There's none of it make no sense. So like that, what else did we miss? We'd love to hear from everyone listening, especially if it's hot goss. We're just not going to report it here as if it's hard news, but we do want to hear about it.
Sure.
I love the tea. Mm-hmm. So shoot us an email at sweetteatvpod@gmail.com or find us on the socials. Hopefully by now you know what we want you to do. Please share Sweet Tea and TV with your friends and family and rate and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We are going to take a couple weeks off for a bit of a spring break for us. Mm-hmm. But come back in a couple weeks when we do our Carrie episode. And that has been this week's Extra Sugar.